At a personal level, I can't go back to getting weapons and fighting.
At a personal level, I can't go back to getting weapons and fighting. Why?
Not because I don't believe that it can work. I have not been there. I would have no moral authority to condemn.
He doesn't believe that it doesn't work. He believes that it works, and he wouldn't have any moral authority to condemn anyone who chooses that path.
Anybody who tries to use the same method. Mm-hmm. But the reason why I can't go get weapons to fight again is different. The people who choose to get weapons to go and fight, I have a sense that even when they take power, 7 out of 10 would be drunk within the first 1 year.
Now that's very scary. And he talks from experience that if these folks, if Bobi Wine decide to take up arms and fight Museveni and probably won, 7 out of 10 folks, 70% of folks he fought with, they would get drunk to power. And as a result, it would give birth to what we see in Uganda.
I mean, I really can't give you guarantees that what happened, for example, 2021 won't happen in 2026. Mm-hmm. I would be presumptuous. Because as long as President Museveni still wants to hang on to power, mm-hmm. and he has already put in his papers he wants to run, they are going to pull the plans to ensure that he wins at any cost. If people cannot be bold enough to vote, you tell me, how will they be bold enough to get weapons and fight? How?
I think it is very, it is. It's not that people are not bold enough to vote.
You're watching Mordecai Marissa Live Political Commentary. Please consider subscribing to help grow Uganda's Voices of Struggle ecosystem. Thank you.
Very glad to be here on Mordecai Marissa TV.
And yes, indeed. Coming to you live from these United States of America. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Mordecai Marissa. I recorded this conversation on the 4th of July, 2025. I want to say Happy Independence Day to these United States of America, a country that has become my second home, for the opportunities that it has given me and to so many influences, positive influences it has across the world. Well, ladies and gentlemen, tonight, let's watch another conversation. Now, this conversation, I've always wanted to ask, especially listen to our historicals or veterans, what do they think about an armed conflict? I've always had people ask Bobi Wine, the president of the National Unity Platform, to lead us into an armed conflict as a result of the oppression, the depression, the disenfranchisement, the hopelessness. They've said we've already lost everything. Why not lead us into an armed conflict? And some of his critics, Bobi Wine's critics, I've always said, oh, he's weak if he won't lead people into an armed conflict against Museveni. Now, Bobi Wine has always stated he understands what an armed conflict gave birth to in Uganda when Museveni led many people to rebel against the government of Milton Obote and Tito, Okello, Lutwa, gave birth to the lawlessness and the impunity we see in Uganda. Now, I've always wanted to hear, what do historicals or the veterans say? And tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to listen to the words of none other than Gregory Mugisha Muntu, former army commander. He's a retired major general. And let's listen to what he says. What does he think about an armed conflict? Should we, get arms and rebel against Museveni? Let's listen in. And you let me know what you think in the comment section.
Which are going to beat President Museveni on the presidential election, but down members of parliament, LC 5 chairpersons, LC 3 chairpersons, 80% are movement.
Well, he says that, Honorable Chagulanyi was able to defeat Museveni on the ballot. He won the last election. Everyone knows that. But we were not able to do it on lower levels, like LC chairpersons, councillors, and to mention but a few. And he goes on to explain.
And we are educated people. It means we are out of touch. We are unable to influence things. Because that's a contradiction. People want change, they vote for the top to be removed. but they reinforce the top by giving them the roots.
And I understand where he's coming from. I think his vision about changing the administration in Uganda is rooted in building ground root, grassroots structures. And this is what he says, you were able to influence or to win the popular election, presidential election, but you're not able. I think he doesn't appreciate the tactics that are used by Museveni down, in the grassroots by bribing people, threatening to kill them, abducting some of the leaders, to mention but a few.
Because members of parliament are C5 or C3s. So we also have a problem, ladies and gentlemen. We have two problems. We have a problem of General Museveni. We also have a problem of those who want to remove him. Because we are not well organized, I think. Possibly we are not even focused. We fall into the trap of the systematic nature of influence of the public mind and the shaping of the narrative.
And when he says that, have a problem of Mr. Museveni and those who want to oppose him, I usually want to extend it to Museveni, a problem. Museveni is a problem. And in number two, it is Museveni. Because you realize that several people have been able to organize, but a regime that is so entrenched in power, it is so difficult to organize against it. You're going to have people who are going to be bought. You're going to have people who are going to just be spies in these organizations. And it becomes extremely difficult. I don't think it is the weakness of the people who are opposing the regime, but it is the entrenchment of the Museveni regime. This is what tyrants, dictators like Museveni do. They make sure that they surround you and you're not able to organize. As you're planning to do something within the law, you have some of his folks telling him this is the next step. This is what they're going to do. And I would appreciate if General Mugisha Muntu was able to come from that background and realize that, what has failed us? It is not because people are not organized. It is because the more we organize, the more we are disorganized. You have a number of folks in Jinja, young people organizing for any sort of initiatives focused on changing things. Museveni only does it by deploying some of his men. I mean, Diso, Iso, chairpersons, everyone. Museveni's power has been stretched, shared to even the minions that serve him in those small villages. So it is very difficult to organize. But that doesn't take away the fact that, there's not been enough organizing. Of course, I'm not trying to say that, if Museveni is doing that, then we cannot organize. No. But there should be a broader explanation of why the organization hasn't been reached upon or manifested by the forces of change.
That's why people get to that conclusion. And therefore they say elections can't work. Muntu, go with others and fight. What is more difficult? If people cannot be bold enough to vote, you tell me, how will they be bold enough to get weapons and fight? How?
I think it is very, it is. It's not that people are not bold enough to vote. Just like you said, that are able to vote the president to defeat Museveni on several occasions. They believe, for some reasons, people have come to believe that if we are able to overwhelm the presidential election, we can influence the rest of other elections below the ballot paper. So I don't think that they're afraid or they cannot. They can. Museveni went to war. He waged a war against the government of Obote and Tito, Okello, Lutwa, not because people were not able to vote. People were able, but Museveni and a group of his friends realized that voting wasn't going to be a solution. They were not afraid. they knew how to vote, but they realized that probably as a result of Obote and Tito Okello's state machinery, there's no way you're going to win. So the only way we can topple this government is through an armed conflict. Taking up arms.
How?
Now, what he's trying to say is the failure of people to change the regime is rooted in fear. If they're afraid to vote, how are they going to be able to take up arms and fight the regime? It is possible. This is me thinking.
If people can be influenced by 1,000 shillings, 2,000 shillings, 5,000 shillings, 10,000 shillings, and then leaders are being bought like one can buy goats in a market, leaders abandon the very people whom they are supposed to represent. You tell me how a population which is influenced by 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 shillings, that will even get people who can get weapons and fight and spend 3 days without eating and walk 40 kilometers a day. How?
My optimism is rooted in stories like those of the slaves. They were able to, as long as they have a charismatic leader, a leader who can convince them that this is the only way, they can. The reason as why they resort to all these petty shillings that they are given, bars of soap and sugar and stuff like that, it is because they have come to believe that there's no any other option. If there's a leader who can convince them to do that, you saw what happened in the recently concluded youth elections. There were many young people actively involved, but then Museveni state machinery was able to intervene. And what happened? The rest is history.
People are looking for excuses to get out of a situation that we need to deal with. At a personal level, I can't go back to getting weapons and fighting.
At a personal level, I can't go back to getting weapons and fighting. Why?
Not because I don't believe that it can work. I have not been there. I would have no moral authority to condemn.
He doesn't believe that it doesn't work. He believes that it works, and he wouldn't have any moral authority to condemn anyone who chooses that path.
Anybody who try to use the same method. Mm-hmm. But the reasons why I can't go get weapons to fight again is different.
Okay.
Why? Because I know, and I've always advised all colleagues who tell me about going to fight, that from my own observation, here in our country so far, the people who choose to get weapons to go and fight, I have a sense that even when they take power, 7 out of 10 would be drunk within the first 1 year.
Now that's very scary. And he talks from experience that if these folks, if Bobi Wine decide to take up arms and fight Museveni and probably won, 7 out of 10 folks, 70% of folks he fought with, they would get drunk to power. And as a result, it will give birth to what we see in Uganda. This is not far from truth. It is the truth. You've heard stories of people who usually tell us, we fought, twarana. It is the entitlement of these folks thinking that they have a right to do whatsoever they want to do or they wish to do because they fought. Theirs wasn't a mission rooted in patriotism. It was a mission rooted in selfishness and selfish interests.
The same things the regime is doing, because that's what happened in our case.
Exactly. This is what he's afraid for. And this is my fear as well. Now, you might disagree with me on principle. It is very okay. I have my fears about the desire to take up, arms and fight Mr. Museveni. A few folks that would choose to do that, they would get drunk to power. This has been the story of our politics, as we know it in Uganda. Is this going to be a rare kind of politics that we see if Bobi Wine took up arms and fought the regime of Mr. Museveni? I don't think. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that I I think Bobi Wine is serving his own interest. Absolutely not. Far from that. But I believe soft entitlement has been entrenched, has been sealed, has been fed into the minds of so many Ugandans that they believe that fighting against dictatorship is a personal war or battle. Yesterday, I showed you a video of Munyagwa Mubaraka, who's saying, we are the next group of leaders. Look at me. Look at me. He even went on to say, the folks who own this struggle are yet to, are soon emerging and they will organize. In his mind, he's entitled to think that he's the only Ugandan that should be put on the front line, that he owns the struggle of the vast majority of Ugandans, of all Ugandans actually. It is the sense of entitlement that is inexplainable. There's no way, you cannot put into words. And having these folks like Munyagwa going to war, this is why even when they're having conversations, their conversations and arguments against Bobi Wine are always centered in ad hominem attacks, personal insults, superiority complex, and narcissism. It's never about substance or ideologies. It is usually, I am smarter than you. Look at me. I have a better body shape. I'm in a better position. You cannot advise me. It is never on substance. Even when they're hosted, you have these folks who are in Masaka, the Muhammad Sereko and Matthias Simpuga. The entire circus in Masaka was solely to attack one gentleman, Robert Chagulanyi Sentamu, putting themselves on a pedestal. I am the smartest. I am this. That sense of entitlement. We are here. We are the only one who can do it. Now imagine if these folks, the Matthias Simpuga and the Muhammad Sereko, are the ones joining Bobi Wine in a war, an armed conflict against Museveni. If they came into power, they would betray Bobi Wine himself. They would. I can tell you. Because first of all, they're driven by... It's never... When I listen to these people, it's never about ideologies or substance in what they discuss. It is usually... don't you think I'm the smartest man in the building? For example, I'll give you an example. Museveni wasn't the wisest amongst those folks who decided to wage a war against the government of Obote and Tito, Okello, Lutwa. But there was a consensus that you might not be the wisest amongst us, but we believe that if we work together and give you a role, the role of being our leader, we can win. Only for Museveni to betray them. Now, having Impuga and Nsereko as your colleagues.
Power, I keep telling people, is like alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
Weapons have their own, when you are in charge of power and you have weapons around you, there is a sense you get like you are in the crowds and everybody else is just, you can't do anything about it. That sense of entitlement, once you take power through weapons, it gives you the sense of entitlement.
Exactly. This is what I believe. That this power, as we know it in Uganda, isn't about institutions. No. It is about you as an individual. This is why any security organ in Uganda can be deployed at the orders of Mr. Museveni to commit crime. No one is going to be questioned. We had a story, mind-blowing story, that would require us to sit down and examine how we got to this level. Folks getting involved in schemes that would see lives of Ugandans lost because they want to get money. Folks from the counterterrorism agency organizing, staging bomb stuff only for them to get money. All institutions are dead. Now, if we are going to have a conversation of having, I don't even understand why usually we even get to that. Because in the end, the idea of this is my struggle, this is my position, this is my political party, is so deeply entrenched in the minds of Ugandans that when they decide to launch a war against the sitting government, they will own it. It's not about how do we topple this government so that we can chart a new path for this country. It is how do we topple this government so that I can become president, I can become prime minister, I can become this. Sages, probably philosophers and poets have always said, power corrupts, but absolute power corrupts absolutely. And this is what became of Yoweri Kaguta Museveni.
Many people get drunk, and therefore the dominant group in the group that would have taken power through the use of weapons dominates and guides the direction.
That's so sad. A dominant group within the group that has just assumed power takes over and gives direction. He's talking about what happened. Because you would wonder, let's go back here, listen to what he said. This is very, very revealing.
Of entitlement. And many people get drunk, and therefore the dominant group in
the dominant group in
the group that would have taken power
in the group that would have taken power
through the use of weapons
dominates
and guides the direction.
Dominates and guides the direction. Now, many of you would be wondering, what is the role of Kelebak and Wanaho Salim Saleh? He has no position in the government. Of recent, he just said he doesn't even own the NRM party ticket or party card. But he dominates the workings within the NRM government. He influences who becomes prime minister, vice president, minister, to mention but a few. And is the one who guides the path of the NRM. While there are folks who are appointed to serve in these positions, they are but clowns, rubber stamp, nothing. They can to Jessica Lupo, vice president. Imagine if Vice President Jessica Lupo gave orders to arrest Salim Saleh.
That's what is happening now. So my suspicion, any group which goes and takes power again through this...
That is so revealing. I want to listen to this music once again because he's telling you what happened to them.
That would have taken power through of entitlement. Once you take power through weapons, it gives you the sense of entitlement. And many people get drunk, and therefore the dominant group in the group that would have taken power through the use of weapons dominates and guides the direction. That's what
he's telling you, that there was a dominant group, a clique of folks within the NRA establishment that dominated the rest and is guiding direction. An abysmal direction, nefarious. That's why we are teetering on the edge of complete collapse of a nation. Because this dominant group within the NRA structure serves its own interests. How do I amass more, build more wealth around me, around myself? How do I have my children have the most important positions in the government and stuff like that?
It's happening now. So my suspicion, any group which goes and takes power again through the use of weapons, the majority of them would get drunk. The small group that would remain sober would not influence the direction of things. That's
wow, this is so good. The small group that would remain sober would not influence things. This is revealing. He's actually telling you what happened to them. Folks got drunk to power, a small clique, and the rest that remained sober, that were deeply rooted in the causes that led them to launch a war against Milton Obote and Tito Okello Lutwa, was elbowed. This is what happened to them. So he's afraid that probably this could be the thing that will happen. So what do you think? Do you think we should get arms and fight against Museveni? And now you might be thinking now, hey, Monica, if we're not going to use arms to fight against Museveni, how are we going to get rid of him? There's a way.
Cannot go back to the bush again. So we have to fight.
Okay.
The majority of them would get drunk. The small group that would remain sober would not influence the direction of things. That's why I cannot go back to the bush again. So we have to fight using other means.
Now, when he says we have to fight using other means, fighting in and of itself as a word has a very loaded connotation, sort of assertive and force But there are other means that you can use. Non-violence fights. The fights that were, that were led by folks like Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther.
3, finally, Annabelle. We all look for money on a daily basis. Some people go to kiosks, some people drive taxis, others drive borders, others have shops, others have different ways they farm. And we don't make money on a daily basis, even on a weekly basis. There are times when things fall apart, we don't get the money. There are times when we lose the money, but we keep fighting until we get money. Why is it that it is easier for people to give up on politics than giving up on the looking for money? And yet politics is at the core of our being and all the things we do.
Chefskis, that's a good question. Why is it very easy for us to lose hope in the fight against dictatorship? Yet we cannot lose hope. We cannot give up on other fights, like feeding ourselves. Why is it very easy? Yet politics is the center of influencing how we get money and how we spend it. Good question. I've seen so many Ugandans who usually writes on my posts, me and politics, twaya. I cannot do politics. Or if someone is murdered, another one is poisoned, so-and-so is disappeared, abducted, tortured, and killed, many folks are easy to say, well, I give up on politics. Whether you give up or not, the decisions that are made by those folks in power influence your day-to-day lifestyle.
Because when politics goes wrong, it affects you in every other area where you are.
Exactly, that's what I meant.
Find you in whichever profession you are in, it will find you in your marketplace, it will find you wherever. So why would we not concentrate and have the same resilience in trying to make our own individual lives better through looking for money? Even when we don't get it, we go back. When you are a farmer and your crop dries up because there has been a drought, you still go back. You keep farming until you get off this planet. But when it comes to elections, you say, I'm no longer going to go and vote. Because I really don't go in that direction.
I don't get it. Usually people say, let's give up on Museveni. No. Giving up has never been an option. I mean, we are all familiar with the conventional saying. Winners do not quit because quitters do not win. And our fight is not against Museveni as an individual. The reason as why we should not quit, it is because our fight is not against Museveni. It is against the Museveni system that is rooted in lawlessness and impunity, corruption, the disenfranchisement, sectarianism, the misallocation of funds, and all other evils that Museveni pretends over.
I think we all should go in there. Actually, 42% of the population never voted. And I think that's part of the problem. Exactly. We need to all mobilize, go there, overwhelm the system. If you cannot overwhelm the top, capture the ground. Like we normally see in Kenya, the opposition, even when the top is manipulated, at least when it gets to parliament, it gets to senators, it gets to the provinces, the governors and all that, you find it's almost hanging balance, 49-51.
This is
the difference about 2-3 people.
This is what we have to do. Overwhelm the system in all situations. Overwhelm it. This is so good. Let me tell you, there were so many changes that were made in the fight for civil rights in the USA. Not because black folks got arms and started fighting. It is because the number of people that were demonstrating, protesting, overwhelmed the system. That it even inspired those folks who had decided to ignore to join the fight. Every time you hear about civil rights movement, it's very easy to think that it was a movement or a fight solely by black folks only. No, there were so many white folks across the USA who joined black folks to fight. So we have to overwhelm the system using legal means. And by that, we're able to inspire. Tyrannical systems do not last forever. No, they don't. Giving up shouldn't be an option. No way. Giving up? Oh, I'm getting tired now because Museveni has stayed in power. I could be the bearer of the bad news. You could get rid of Museveni and get yourself a Mama Mbabazi. From bad to worse, or from worse to bad. Our fight is against the system.
And therefore the president finds it very difficult to run a country as if they are running a home. Here, educated people are there in Chadondo. There. If you go and check about those candidates who are piled up there in Chadondo, 8 out of 10 don't believe in NRM, but they are there.
Yep. Because of money.
This is a problem in our society, and we need to deal with it head on. Those who want to take weapons out there, I wish you luck. I won't be part of it.
Those who want to get weapons, I wish you luck. I won't be part of it. I don't want to get weapons. I don't think it's the way, especially looking at what we had to pay, a price we paid for the disorganization we see in Uganda right now. Over 500,000 people died. 500,000 people plus. Usually when we mention that number, they say it's exaggerated. Then I usually bring it to 100,000 people. Or let's say 100,000 people. All right, 100,000 people died in real war. For what we see, for the poverty, for the unemployment, for the disenfranchisement, for the lawlessness and impunity, for the abduction, torturing, disappearing, and killing of innocent people, for the stealing of funds, for the corruption, for the sectarianism, for the overstay and dictatorship. I don't think that's the way we should.
I won't condemn it, but I think we need to take a different direction and do all things necessary to see that we shape a better future. Sacrifices are required. The last one, anonymous innocent public caught up in the violence. Unfortunately, I mean, I really can't give you guarantees that what happened, for example, 2012 won't happen in 2026. I would be presumptuous. Because as long as General Museveni still wants to hang on to power, and he has already put in his papers he wants to run, they are going to pull the plans to ensure that he wins at any cost.
That's what they're going to do, to make sure that he wins at all costs. This is a warning for folks who are going to go there. This doesn't necessarily mean that, now you should give up, but they're going to abduct people, kill, disappear people. Sad.
So if you are likely to be in a particular place where violence is being unleashed, you may easily become a casualty. But that is not to say that we should give up hope and abandon the struggle. This is not General Museveni's home. This is a country, 45 million people, with a fast-growing population.
Yes.
So whatever his desires should be irrelevant to those who want change.
Museveni's desire should be irrelevant to us who want change. Museveni's desires are to stay in power at all means possible. Ours should be changing the country.
Keep organizing.
Yes.
Because as the English say, success happens when opportunity meets with preparation.
Success happens when opportunity meets with preparation.
Who knows what is going to happen between now and whenever we go for election? Who knows? Only God knows. General Museveni doesn't know. We don't know. So let's not give him what he wants to say, this is a done deal. It is not a done deal.
It is not. Do not give up.
As long as those who want change become active and organized relentlessly without giving up. Right? Organize. Mobilize.
You
sit back home and say, it's a done deal, that will be a self-fulfilling prophecy. Not because it must happen, but because you have not participated to prevent it becoming what you think it is going to become. So far, all the colleagues who've been here before me have testified to the state of affairs.
Well,
we just heard Chairman Senja as a torture victim, as a survivor. And it's self-evident that we've had a trend of elections that are manipulated, where force is used.
Well, I just wanted him to respond to that very important question. Should we, get arms and fight the regime of Mr. Museveni? What does he think? I think he gave a very good reason. Now, here's my parting shots here. It is very easy in situations where Museveni has put us in, where we are hopeless, we are broken, we are oppressed, depressed. We do not know what to do. It is very easy to think of the most nefarious way to get rid of him. I've heard people who say that probably Museveni should be. I don't think so. I don't pray for that. I believe Museveni should leave power, should be forced out of power. And force doesn't necessarily mean kill him or do stuff like that. No. And let the legal course take charge. That's what I believe. Now, it's very easy to suggest, the only way we can get rid of Museveni is through an armed conflict. I don't believe so. Given what I land on every time I try to read about the 1981 to 86 war. People died only for us to end up in a situation where we are. There should be a way. And I'm talking to you as a country. We've never had peaceful transfer of power. After gaining independence, how many years did it take for the Buganda crisis? 1966? And then you have the, Obote forcing Mutesa into exile. Then Idi Amin toppling Obote in 1971. And then after 71 to 79, Julius Nyerere helping us topple Idi Amin. And then you have the coming back of Obote in Obote 2 from Zambia, I think. Was it from Zambia? Where was he hiding? And then Obote didn't come to power in the most legal way, stealing elections, doing all the lawlessness Museveni is employing a lawlessness that Museveni is employing right now. And then you had him being toppled by Tito, Okello, Lutwa. Then you have the change of power by different people, and then to Museveni. We should be able to dream of a new way. It might not be as entertaining or attractive as toppling the government sound, but having seen where we came from, should we use the same path? What do you think? I mean, we can disagree on principle. You might say, Mordecai, I don't believe in your ideas. I think we should fight this way. It's fine. Can disagree on principle. But I believe we can organize, overwhelm him through an election, demonstrate peacefully in large numbers. I can guarantee you, if Museveni deployed 2,000 people and we started demonstrating and we are 50,000 people, 50,000 people can overwhelm the 2,000 military officers. We have seen it work in Kenya. It can work in Uganda. Of course, it's very easy for me to say, especially speaking from the comfort of my home in the USA. But I believe, and I've listened to the leaders in Uganda who have these ideas, and I believe someone will lead this campaign. Could be the one I believe in, Bobby Wine. What do you think? Go on and write down in the comment section, and I would appreciate your feedback. My name is Mordecai Murisa. Till we catch up again.
Did you enjoy what you just watched?
I'm sure they did.
I'm going to guess that you did. How about you consider subscribing to Mordecai Marissa Live YouTube channel? Thank you.